tuned in, this is not a joke. They said, look, we're going to have software that basically operates as a black box by law on all digital TVs that hook to cable or satellite, and that hooks to all of your software. And the computers, just like the Telecommunications Act, made it where all cell phones had to be remotely accessible as microphones and tracking devices. The FCC is now saying, just like every device you buy says FCC approved, and it'll be an added cost you pay for. That's how they do it. You will pay for your computer and your TV to be a surveillance box that surveils everything you're watching. They admit this, and censors as a gatekeeper, and already in areas of New Zealand, in England, and on the continent of Europe, we have confirmed and gotten the screenshots of this, quote, free government broadband, 3G and 4G, is not letting people go to Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com, my two main websites, and many other mainline sites like Lou Rockwell and others. So this is the issue. We know the model they're going to use, and guess what? The FCC is now saying their plan is within 2 years to be offering nationwide free 3G and 4G, but it's not free. Taxpayers pay for it. They're competing with the free market, so they can put in the filtering systems in that as well. So this is basically hardwiring all the next generations of technology to censor and control to a level that dwarfs what we've seen in China. So it can happen here. It is happening here. But the amount of open tyranny taking place is a bigger wake-up call than your show or my show or 100 other shows combined. And I think the globalists are now realizing that we planted seeds in the minds of men and women everywhere for decades, and that this is an explosive info war weapon, and that they're in deep trouble.
Oh, they are, and there's so many ways to go with what you opened with. But like you, I've been yelling about our phony economy since the leveraged buyouts of the late Reagan years, and now I get all the emails. You told me 20 years ago this was happening. The horrible thought, and you're probably there too, is knowing that it was going to happen, and I did. I didn't doubt it. I didn't know when. But there's absolutely nothing that I can do about it with regard, just looking at the economy right now, in terms of people say, well, you knew about this for 20 years. You must know what to do, and I don't. Where are you on that?
Well, it's kind of like knowing if you smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day, when you get 65 or 70, you're probably going to get lung cancer. Now the country's got lung cancer, and people are saying, well, you knew we were going to get lung cancer. What do we do now?
Yeah, right.
And I guess it's we fight for our lives. We do whatever we can. I mean, I think the biggest issue is noncompliance, educating people, calling for criminal indictments of the big 6 banking families. I mean, notice that, and Ron Paul's agreed with me and many others, that there's lots of criminal things they've committed. I mean, how many banking heads have stood before Congress in the last 2 years and said, we won't tell you where the trillions of dollars are every time they ask? I mean, there was new hearings last week, and they're like, where is this $50 billion? Where is this $200 billion? Where is this $80 billion? And they just say, I will not tell you. So it's an arrogance, and we need to do that. We need to expose these people. We need to say, default on the debt. We don't owe this $600 trillion in derivatives that the Washington Post says we basically owe to the bankers. They created literally hundreds of times, and in some cases thousands of times in ratios, more fiat currency and more fiat made-up paper assets that actually exist. And they've tricked us with this mind game of, well, we're corrupt, but we're too big to fail. This is all tied to your 401k. That was all done by design. We're going down one way or the other. We're having a crash landing one way or the other. The question is, do we survive on the bottom, and do we defeat these globalists, going through this crisis, or do the globalists come out on the other side of the crisis they've created with even more power and this new global cashless currency that sits above the other currencies that's now in Newsweek and Time Magazine and CNN? They're all pushing it, and the New York Times, they're saying, yes, we have a depression, but don't worry. The very people that engineered it have a solution for you. Give them more power. I mean, the Financial Reform Act on record gives unlimited autonomy and power to the Federal Reserve to take over any financial institution they want. And major banking associations, like the Texas Banking Association, with healthy local banks that actually are engaged in the free market, they had a great editorial 2 months ago saying, look, this is a banking takeover of healthy real banks by the mega banks that created the derivatives. And so now that's basically passed the House and the Senate. It's in conference. They're merging the two bills. But Ron Paul and many others that I really believe in, and I concur with them, believe that this is a fatal wound to the banks. Right. You know, the big mega global corporations. I hate to even call them banks, the Ponzi scheme operators, the criminal class. Right. Because 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 90+% of people didn't know the Federal Reserve was private. They still thought presidents and prime ministers actually ran things. Now, if you look at polls worldwide, the people between 75 and almost 90%, depending on the poll, recognize this criminal ruling class that's not free market, that aren't capitalists, who are insider traders and monopoly men. And that's why Zbigniew Brzezinski, a month and a half ago, to the Council on Foreign Relations, televised on C-SPAN, top global strategist, who openly writes books calling for world government, and he goes way back to even Jimmy Carter, Obama's chief foreign policy advisor. He said, look, folks, he said, we're in deep trouble. For the first time in world history, the entire world has awakened to the power structure and to the Anglo-American establishment. That doesn't mean white people, folks. You know, it means England, the United States, the Dutch Empire, that model of mercantilism. And he said that basically their world government was in trouble. And so, and this is a real statement because they are in trouble. Right as they have grasped and taken over the planet and executed this incredible Ponzi scheme that's meant to bring us down under their control, they have uncloaked themselves and revealed themselves, and so time is on our side. We just have to understand it took them hundreds of years to take down Western civilization. It's going to take us decades, and we're already well into that, to reverse the tide. It's like the old analogy of a big cruise ship. You start turning it, it takes a few minutes to even notice that you're turning, and then suddenly you see the movement. And so Rome wasn't built in a day. We're not going to tear down this new world order and replace it with something in a day. The most important thing is to continue to point out who the criminals are, to point out the real issues that are going on, the real definitions, so people know the alternative as this system begins to collapse. So the globalists can't offer another false solution to bring us deeper into their thrall.
And I think the next 5 months, obviously, are crucial because the one thing about the Obama administration that we see with the speed they're operating is that they know their party may be over come the November elections and then when those representatives are seated in January. So I'm of the mind to think that Obama wants cap and trade and immigration through. He got his health care through, or so he thinks. Wants the other two through prior to the election. And, there's a lot of speculation on what went on in the Gulf, and we'll talk about that, of course. But whatever it takes, this guy's going to get immigration and cap and trade. That's what I think his agenda is. Now, hopefully we can stop him, but I think those are his main priorities. What say you?
Well, you're absolutely right, and they are in a race to gut this country, to bankrupt it as fast as they can. I mean, there's so many instances of this. Rahm Emanuel saying, don't let a good crisis go to waste. Right. We know their whole mode of operation is, order out of chaos, create the crisis, offer the solution, exacerbate an already existing crisis, offer the solution. This is what they do. But if we go back to 3 weeks ago, Senator Kyle, for those that haven't seen the video, just Google Senator Kyle, Obama blackmailing America, or holding America hostage. There's several versions of it. And at a town hall, he said, look, I was in a closed-door meeting with Obama, and I said, we're having tens of thousands of deaths on the Mexico side, thousands on our side. It's all collapsing, 80-plus miles into the country. The illegals have taken over. The feds are putting up signs saying, don't go to national parks, don't drive down this highway. He said, sir, we can get your, quote, immigration reform, which is legalization, but first you've got to secure this border. And Obama said, well, I need that crisis to be able to basically use that to get my agenda passed. So there is the mindset. And when you look at everything they're doing, as bad as the crisis is in the Gulf, as bad as all this is, it's a distraction from health care. So people going into the election forget what he did, forget what America's turning into. It's a distraction. Even if he is politically destroyed, it doesn't matter. With these people, it's the goal of literally converting America to a collectivist model. These are corporate Borg, and he'll just be rehabilitated later, just like they're rehabilitating Bush right now, politically in the media. And It is a sickening joke. If they succeed, America will be completely poor, totally controlled, and we're going to see Obama, Clinton, Bush Sr., George W., and all of them up there at fundraisers 5 years from now laughing at us, and the media will rehabilitate Obama, who brings in the socialist health care,